Thanks for joining. So my name is Frédéric, and I'm Business Development Manager at Capsugel Lonza. And I'm here today to talk about inhalation. I'm very happy to have the opportunity to discuss about capsule-based DPIs and our unique way to ensure optimal performance of such important product. So let's take first a look at device selection, and especially looking at some of the benefits of capsule-based DPIs, and then further focus on the critical parameters that will impact the DPI capsule performance, and how can these be customized to actually ensure we meet the optimal performance. So you may have heard or shared the increased interest for the pulmonary route. Obviously, looking at pulmonary disease, whether it's asthma or COPD, it's becoming one of the most prevalent life-threatening disease, for which obviously it's important to be able to deliver directly at the site of action for speed of use, bypassing any of the other oral barrier. But it's also interesting to see that there are current research and products that have been recently launched for systemic application. I'm thinking about cystic fibrosis with antibiotics, improved formulation, but also CNS, Parkinson's disease, where the lung, which its enormous absorptive area, represent a very interesting alternative delivery route to the injections, and also potential for improved therapies with prolonged residence, for example, that makes it very interesting for patient compliance. If we look at delivery platform in the inhalation field, there's a very wide variety of technologies. The non-portable nebulizer devices that tends to be more in the hospital settings for very specific patients. The majority of the volume still remains with the PMDIs. And we see new generation of PMDIs with some soft mist inhaler. But I would like to focus on dry powder inhalers, where you have also their subcategories, whether you're looking at multiple dose reservoir type of device or unit dose, whether it's blister or capsules. And we see there that these DPIs are now have the favor of most of the innovative new combination product that we see now out there on the market. When it comes to choose the inhaler technology, I guess it's about the indication, the disease, the patient, obviously. But we thought it would be interesting to mention only two additional parameters that now comes into play as well. First of all, the environmental impact, and there were a very interesting call from NICE in the UK, advising, strongly suggesting pharma companies to actually take a look at the environmental impact of their choice. So that's one interesting parameter. And the other one being the connectivity. As we see for other type of device, especially in the injection world, we do see now growing interest for adding on electronics and connectivity in device, whether it's DPIs or PMDIs, with the idea to further improve patient compliance and efficacy of treatment. And even in the capsule-based device, Plastiape has worked on a very interesting e-connected device. But let's go back for a moment on the DPI device selection. I guess there would be four pillars that we can look at when looking at selecting the most appropriate device. Obviously, patient compliance. Another important one is cost effectiveness. especially at moments where there are growing needs for asthma and COPD efficient treatment in emerging markets and also Asia, India and China. Compatibility with the formulation, with the characteristics of the APIs to be developed, and as we mentioned before, the environmental impact. Well, device selection, DPIs, it's interesting because unlike the PMDIs, there's no need for patient coordination with the device and the actuation. So that makes it a very wise platform, targeting a large area of patient and patient conditions. As we saw before, it's also easy to open the path for further connection, again with keeping patient compliance in mind. And if we want to further focus on capsule-based DPIs, I would say that an additional benefit would be for the patient to be fully part of the actuation and the loading. So indeed, the DPI capsule comes as a blister on one side, the device on the other side. It has to load the dose, to do the actuation, and then even have immediate feedback after the actuation, looking through the capsule, ensuring that the dose has been effectively taken. And all these to my mind further contributes to the patient being part of the treatment and engaged in the treatment over time. Cost effectiveness. Well, it's about device first, because now there's a very wide offer of off-the-shelf device at very different level of sophistication. We saw before that you can further add some electronics if you need to, but there are also very valid two pieces device that are very cheap to manufacture, that the patient can keep on one side while the dose will come on the other side. The advantage of those devices is also that the dose can be adapted depending whether we're talking low dose for asthma or COPD or much larger dose for antibiotic therapy. And again, with the ability to adapt using the same, if we talk about capsule-based DPI, using the same easy-to-manufacture process, because at the end of the day, it's about filling capsule, which is a well-known process, easy to implement, robust, and well-known. And finally, compatibility with the formulation. Again, that's one of the key benefits of the DPI, because we are using dry powder in this case, so that further enhance stability, including of fragile molecule or formulation. If we look at capsule-based platform, it has been proven to be effective whether we're talking about some standard carrier-based formulation up to more sophisticated engineered particle approach. And last, but that remains important as well, no propellant, obviously, in the DPIs, and a further benefit of capsule-based DPIs being that the device can be reusable and the capsules as such is fully biodegradable. So let's take a look now, more looking at capsule-based DPIs. This is a triangle, and you want the three-part system to work well. So first step would be to identify specifically what are the critical parameters of each one of the system that may finally impact the end performance of the product. I've tried to list some for each of the device, the powder formulation, the capsule. I will take a closer look at some of the parameters of the capsule, but at the end of the day, what counts for you as a developer and for us as a provider is to ensure that if we look at emitted dose, fine particle fraction, or the particle size distribution, you are able to achieve the best performance. So focusing now on the DPI capsules. maybe first remembering that DPI capsules are not standard capsule, they're not oral capsule. The first reason is actually regulatory, because they have to comply with a specific monograph looking at microbiological purity, where you have to demonstrate with tighter specification that the DPI capsule complies. The second difference for the Capsugel DPI capsule lies with the lubricant content residual. So let me remind you that capsules are manufactured through a dipping process, where you have pins that are dipped into a polymer solution. And it's like cooking. If you want easily to detach the pancakes from the pan, you have to put a little bit of oily or butter, whatever, to ensure that you have a nice pancake. In this case, we have to use some oily component around our pins to ensure that we will be able to detach properly and have a fully functional capsules. But on the other way, for DPI capsules, we also recognize that any left amount of lubricant inside the capsule may have an impact on the powder that will be emitted from the capsule. And therefore, we wanted to reduce the level of this residual by reducing our specification compared to oral capsules. That's about a 10-fold. And here we have a specification less than 500 ppm. Another difference, if we think about DPI capsules, is actually the dose that you will be filling this capsule with. For asthma and COPD, typically we have less than 40 milligram powder to be filled in a size 3 capsule. And a size 3 capsule, the individual weight of the DPI capsule is 47 milligram. So it's easy to understand that if you want to achieve accurate dosing, you have to have either a capsule filling machine with adequate inline dosing system, but you can also work with us, and we can ensure that we reduce the standard capabilities of our capsules by sorting to actually supply you with capsules with a tighter variability in weight. So typically that's plus minus 3 milligram, but by sorting means we can supply capsule with plus minus 1 milligram. Also helping you to achieve a more precise dosing. When it comes to DPI capsule, our approach is to offer a portfolio of capsules to choose from, depending on the device that has been selected, depending on the type of formulation that you intend to encapsulate with. And here you have a first choice being the polymer, whether you want to go for a gelatin or an HPMC-based capsule. And I guess what can help you to drive this decision, it's the water content. This is just a water sorption isotherm of gelatin and VCAPS Plus, and I guess that's one of the document and data set that I share the most with all the customers working on DPIs, to understand what is the working area they can eventually play with, depending they choose gelatin or HPMC. And that depends of how sensitive the formulation will be. For example, it's obvious, but if you want to fill the capsule in a dry environment, because you know you're working with a freeze-dried formulation that is quite hygroscopic, then you probably want to work below 30% RH. And in this case, the gelatin can become very brittle, so the HPMC capsule will be the obvious choice. And this is just an illustration of that. The more dry you go, obviously, with the gelatin, the more risk of brittleness and broken capsule you will have. And this is, again, I guess, with a portfolio of different polymers, we have the ability to actually meet the requirements depending on the characteristics of your formulation. Water is also important, and capsule LOD is also important because that will have a direct impact into the powder retention. I've mentioned the lubricant content residual, that's for sure an important parameter, but that's for sure not the only one. And the other one will be the capsule LOD. And in this case, the drier you get, the more static charges you build inside the capsule and the more powder retention you will get. So it's really, so the work that we can do together is really to find the best compromise between ensuring the formulation stability, but also maximizing the emitted dose. So the drier is not always the better, because then you will have to manage static charges on capsule filling machine, and that's not always very funny. So electrostatic is another topic that is coming often. And we have, again, at Capsugel Lonza, our technical service, which are present, that can come on the capsule filling machine, helping out to find the right conditions to actually ensure we can mitigate that kind of risk. Let's come back to the lubricant content residual that I was mentioning, and this is to illustrate the importance of this parameter. On the right-hand side, you have a standard VCAPS Plus capsules that is designed for oral delivery. So we have our standard lubricant content residual spec, which is less than 5,000 ppm. And on the other side, you have the VCAPS Plus DPIs, and you can see that if you do this lactose filling, shaking, and emptying, the difference lies primarily with the amount of lubricant that is left inside the capsule. And I think you can see a clear difference between the two grades of capsules. Powder retention and powder interaction with the internal surface, the capsule, it's about water, it's about lubricant content residual, but it's also about surface properties. And here, it's also interesting to have the opportunity to offer different type of polymers and different capsules, because depending on the surface roughness, you can get to very different performance. And here I wanted to show the difference in surface between a gelatin capsule, a VCAPS Plus capsule, which is manufactured through thermogelation process, so without any gelling gum inside the process, and the VCAPS, which includes gelling gum as a gelling agent. And we can see how that impacts the roughness. And we have examples where for one specific formulation, the performance in a VCAPS or VCAPS Plus DPI was not equivalent, and therefore there may be instances, cases where one can be better than the other one. Okay, I guess just a little bit of sum up when it comes to powder retention, capsule powder retention. There are multiple parameters that will impact the emitted dose at the end, lying with capsule LOD, the formulation water activity, and that is something where we can be helping you out to measure water activity and define what is the best capsule LOD for your specific formulation. The morphology of the internal surface of the capsule, obviously the lubricant content residual, and then what are your blending, filling process conditions that are also important to understand upfront. And then, of course, it's about understanding what type of devices will be used. I'm always amazed when I see how creative the device manufacturer can be when it comes to opening, shearing, stripping, cutting, whatever, capsules. So this is also an important information for us to understand, because some capsules are pierced with one or multiple needles. Some of them are just separated cap and body. Others are sheared on the side. And the mechanical resistance that will be needed, or the dimensional specification variability that the device will be able to handle, obviously can be different, and that's why that's also an important parameter. So we did a lot of funny stuff, putting our different capsules in different conditions to understand how a piercing device, for example, was operating with a number of different capsules. And of course, if you piercing gelatin-based capsules under dry conditions where there are more risk to generate some particles, that can raise some questions from the patient when it comes to finding some pieces of gelatin capsules during the actuation phase. So again, you can rely on the Capsugel team to provide some feedback, information, data around how our different capsule portfolio can work depending on the operating mode of the selected device. So my conclusions, I guess there is no standard DPI capsules. And I guess my favorite sentence will probably be, it depends. It depends on what you want to go, where you want to launch your product, what is the ideal product you have in mind, what is your patient, but also what are your formulation characteristics, how sensitive is your formulation. So it's about understanding the product target profile to actually help guide and select and further customize the DPI capsules. As I try to show, DPI product and capsule-based DPIs, it's a multiple component. So it's not all about capsule, it's not all about formulation, it's about really understanding the weight of the different elements to make sure that we can do the best choice together. And even if the DPI products are complex, we now understand well the different parameters that are critical. We are able to manage, to understand what our capabilities are, also what can be done, what cannot be done, what kind of variability the formulation and the process has to be able to comply with. So again, it's about really a teamwork with the capsule supplier, the device supplier, and the R&D scientist. And that gives me the opportunity to introduce you to our capsule DPI portfolio, Zephyr, with gelatin capsule, gelatin peg, HPMC, whether it contains or not gelling agent. And from this base, the idea is to help you select, test, and further customize to find the unique DPI capsules that will meet your specific requirements. So if you had the opportunity to come by our booth, it's all 10, isn't it? Then we will be happy to walk you through the different capsules that are part of this Zephyr portfolio and further discuss on your specific project. Thank you.